Good morning and welcome back to those of you who joined us last night. Hope you had a really nice evening. For those who didn't join last night, I'm M. Carlouis-Smith. I'm one of the partners here at Elixirr. On behalf of all of us, we just really want to thank you for those who have come back after last night and for those who've joined us newly this morning for joining us for the Challenger Edge. Today's the big day. Today's those working sessions that we promised you. In fact, so many of you decided you wanted to come to this day that we've had to do a bit of last-minute furniture moving. So apologies that it's very cozy. And apologies there aren't many seats. There are a few I see in this middle block if people are struggling to see from over that side or the far side. So we apologise that it's cosy, but hopefully that will make us all nice and closer together. And we just really wanted to fit more of you in because we wanted to include you all. So hence the room. So please work with it as we are. We will be splitting into breakouts a bit later where we might have a bit more space. As we heard last night, the Challenger Edge, which is obviously our event today, is a series of these working sessions that will be getting you thriving at that intersection of AI, of leadership under pressure, and of the next generation of talent and customers. We want you to get involved. We want you to plant yourselves in the future and think about how you can design your business backwards. Our morning sessions will explore all of these sorts of topics, and then after lunch, we will be in our breakout groups. We're then going to hear from Emmanuel Freineha, who is the Chief Digital Officer of Sanofi, and also Elixirr's founders, Stephen and Graham. It's a bit of a shift to the agenda that's in your booklets, but I'll explain a little bit more about that later. By the end of today, as I said last night, our hope is that you go away with three things. One big idea that you're ready to test, one behavior or habit that you're ready to change, and one measurable outcome that you will move in the next 90 days. First of all, however, some important housekeeping, and please bear with me, I have a list of instructions that I need to read out. So first of all, restrooms are located on this floor, and they're just outside the main event space, I think over to the right-hand side. So just over there on the right. Both coffee breaks will be taking place outside of this main room in the foyer where you were gathering this morning. Drinks will be available out there all day, so please do help yourselves if you can squeeze out of the room and get out of the room. We will be in here for all of the morning sessions. And then this room will be turned into 3 rooms for the breakout sessions during lunch. So our bigger yet cozy format will change a little bit for those breakout rooms that will happen just after lunch. There's also an afternoon coffee break where we will then turn the room back into this big cozy room that we're all in for the last 2 sessions of the day. Breakout group letters are on your lanyards. If you did not pick up a new lanyard this morning, please could you do so because they actually have your breakout sessions written on them. You can pick that up from the desk outside. The letters on your lanyard for your breakout sessions indicate which room you'll need to go to and also which session you are going to, session 1, session 2, A, B or C in your booklets. So if you have CC or CB, have a look at your booklets and see session 1, what C is, and session 2, what B is, and then the rooms will actually be labelled A, B, and C as well, so you'll know where to go. If you've got any questions at all, the Elixirr team are around, and they'll be outside as well to ask for help. Wi-Fi details are printed and available on the tables in the foyer. Today's sessions are being filmed. Hopefully everyone is okay with that. If not, please do let us know. If you need any help, then obviously we're all here to help you during the day. The slight change to the schedule in the brochure is that our founders, Stephen and Graham, will now be speaking at 4 o'clock rather than just before lunch. And we would also love your feedback. So please see the QR code that is printed in the brochure. There's also a QR code on your lanyards, which is the guest list for today. But if you have opted out of that, don't worry, your name will not be included. Right, now that we're all clear on that, it's with great pleasure that I want to introduce our first speaker of the day, Adam Hofmann. Adam started solving problems with AI over 10 years ago, and he started an AI company in 2020, long before the recent hype. Elixirr acquired Adam's company in 2023, and he now leads our AI business globally. So I think Adam is a pretty good person to tell us why most AI initiatives are underperforming and how to lead differently to get outstanding results. Adam, over to you.
Thanks, Em. All right, how's everybody doing? Good? Who woke up this morning and the first thing they did after doom scrolling TikTok or Instagram was talk to ChatGPT or their favorite tool? Yeah, let's go, Sheeta. Okay, maybe that wasn't you. That's okay. What about, is anybody tired of hearing about AI? That came up last night. People were like, oh, God, do we have to talk about AI again? We do, sorry. So I'm going to try to make it as entertaining as we possibly can. But yeah, as Em said, we're going to talk about really this headline that came from an MIT piece of research that came out a couple of months ago. Headlines were all over the place. 95% of projects are failing. Oh my God, this technology is so overhyped. Let's talk about it and see what's going on. So what I noticed was that we've got this really interesting paradox right now, where that's what the headline says, looking at big companies, while at the same time, we've got startups like Gamma that has got to 50 million in ARR with 28 employees. Or you've got a startup like Cursor that gets to 200 million, not spending a whole lot on marketing, building everything themselves on top of these models, and they're scaling at pace that we've really never seen before. So something's got to be different between these two groups. But I think a good way to understand what's happening is to kind of go back in time and see how we got here and to really understand how fast things are moving. So real quick, we start off AI in the 50s. If we can go back a little bit further, but for today, we're just going to go to the 50s. AI really is a bunch of algorithms and rules. We feel like if we can just program all the possible ways that something can happen, that's going to be AI. We find out that's pretty hard. So some more technology breakthroughs need to happen. We eventually get to this stuff we start calling machine learning, which is really pattern recognition, lots of data, well labeled. We train these models how to predict things, how to identify patterns. Is this a cat? Is this a dog? Is this a stop sign? Is this a motorcycle? Things like that. Fraud comes into play. Then we get to deep learning and neural networks. We start saying, okay, well, what if we can have the different parts of the model pay attention to different things, and then we can combine those things together into a more advanced model. But as you see here, the timeline's starting to compress. So we go from about 30 years to about 20 years, and then we've got a big breakthrough in 2018. We invent the transformer model, which enables large language models. And then not too long after, we figure out how to connect these large language models to other things, and we start calling them agents. So timeline's compressing. They're becoming more and more capable faster. And so this evolution that we're going through from these LLMs to agents, just to double click on that real quick, I want you to think about interacting with an LLM. This is the way that it works. If you go to ChatGPT, you're interacting with the foundation model. That's it. So you send in your prompt or your request, your question. The LLM, based on the model itself, sends you an answer back. So we use that to write emails, summarize a document, act as an expert, all sorts of fun things that we'll talk about a little bit later. And then we figured out, okay, well, these LLMs, like, they're maybe not great at everything. They don't have current up-to-date information. Maybe they're not so great at math. Can we give them some other capabilities? So we figure out how to teach, if you will, LLMs how to go and interact with other things. We call them tools. It's kind of like the standard term these days. And so that sort of thing where you've got an LLM that can now go and interact with things outside of its model itself, we pretty much call that an agent. You give it a goal, it's got tools, it's got an objective, it goes and it does those things. Then we said, okay, well, wait a second. What if agents could just interact with other agents? And that's kind of where we're at now. So you've got specialized skills that these different agents have. They can do different things. They can do more advanced workflows, in other words. Not just one thing. It can't just write you the email, but it could say your goal is to go and contact new customers. It can go out and do the research, write the email, get the response, reply back. This is kind of where we're at today. So what else is happening, though, is this chart shows how rapidly we're developing new models. So the number of models that are available is growing quite significantly. On top of that, the capability of these models is getting better. These lines look straight up and down. That's because they are. And so you can see in the beginning, we've got 1998 to, what is that, 2018? These models kind of like linearly get better. But now you can see how fast these models are exceeding human level performance. That's that 0 bar that runs through there on things like predictive reasoning, math problem solving, code generation, where when these models come out for the first time, they're basically at the average human level skill set when it comes to doing these things. So more models, and they're more capable. Oh, and by the way, the cost of these models are dropping to close to 0. So that means every time that you use a model, it gets cheaper and cheaper to use it. So this is one of those inverse scaling laws, where the thing gets better and it becomes cheaper. People use more of it, which then reinforces that cycle. And so at a macro level, if you think about these patterns and we look at other foundational technologies, that's kind of what we're setting up for right here. So if you think about electricity, turned out kind of a big deal. It takes, wait for it, 50 years, to get to about 50% of US households. We had to build out a lot of infrastructure to be able to make that happen. Then let's look at the internet. Needed some infrastructure as well, but it happened a whole heck of a lot faster. We had some other things in place. It enabled it to go a little bit faster, so about 10 years to get to 1 billion users globally. Now, I picked ChatGPT as a proxy here just because it has available data on user numbers. They like to promote those things. But let's just say that that's a proxy for people using generative AI and large language models. They're going to hit about 800 million users in about 3 years. So this means this is like kind of the fastest growing technology that we've ever had. And just to show you that progress, so I showed you charts and graphs. I'm more of a visual person. Who's here familiar with the Will Smith spaghetti eating video challenge? Yeah? So I don't know, somebody decided that they wanted to see Will Smith eat some spaghetti, and so they put it into a model. So I'm going to show you the before and after. The before is 2023. The now is, it's actually an out-of-date model. It's VO 3.0, not VO 3.1. So this is 2 years of progress. This means that whatever you're using today is the worst that it's ever going to be. I'm sure you've all seen that, right? So Will Smith actually apparently can eat spaghetti now, whereas before, questionable. And so what's happening? Why are these latest models, why is this latest wave of AI? Because AI is not anything new, contrary to maybe popular belief here. It's super accessible. So it's digital first, it's available to anybody with a browser. It's intuitive, so it's pretty easy to use. You just have to kind of know how to give it prompts or instructions. It can do a whole lot. So it can translate language into different things, not just text, video, images, code, biology in some cases. And it's self-improving. So we can use the technology to make itself better. But the real thing for us, why this matters so much, is because the multiplier is human language. It's something that we all understand. I would probably guess most people in this room don't know how to code, can't program. Some of you probably can. But guess what? Like, all of you can program now because you can communicate your words to a machine that knows how to do this translation. And this really starts to change things. So what happens when everybody has access to on-demand intelligence? I used it last couple of weeks to refinance my house mortgage. I had it act as a mortgage expert that was on my side, compared quotes. I'm not a mortgage expert. I've never refinanced a house before, right? But like, I just all had to go is talk to these models, and it happened. And then at the same time, universal creation. So I can now go become a music producer. The first AI ever showed up on Billboard this week. Top charts, fully AI produced, has a whole persona. Right, there was an AI actress that came out a couple months ago, caused all sorts of ripples through Hollywood, right? And so when you've got these two things together with human language, it's really powerful. And I'll give you another example from the programming thing. Who's a vibe coder in here? Do I have any vibe coders? There we go. Elixirr people, we got to get those hands up. Okay, so I'm actually not an engineer, maybe contrary to popular belief. I know just enough to be dangerous, but this is Bolt. I can go to it, I can give it a prompt. In this case, I told it I want a new project management tool, and it's going to go off and write some code for me. And so this is AI writing code. I don't care how good of a developer you are, you can't physically type this fast. And so it's just going to keep going, writing different files. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit. But like end to end, this took 8 minutes. And then it comes back to me. So this means I have enough time to go downstairs, let my dogs out real quick, because I'm on back-to-back calls all day, and sometimes that doesn't happen, and I feel bad as a puppy parent. But then eventually it comes back, and it's like, hey, Adam, here's your project dashboard. So I can add a new project. Add some information, description. I can add project goals. Now, do I have to go do more things to get this live and deploy it to users? Absolutely. But the point is, this is something that was not possible 12 months ago for somebody like me. Actually, 12 months ago it was. 24 months ago for somebody like me. And every time that I open these tools up, they get more and more capable. And so what I started thinking about was, the reason that some of these projects are failing, actually most of them are failing, isn't because of the technology. The technology will keep getting better. It's about how we're applying it. And honestly, it's a whole lot about leadership. So I started thinking, how do I help leaders see where we might be going so that we've got more opportunities in front of us? So I did some reflecting, and most of these general purpose tech kind of follow the same disruption cycle. First, we go to imitation. So we really just like bolted on to what we already know. So to me writing an email, I asked ChatGPT to write the email. Now we're just all sending back and forth ChatGPT AI slop. It's delightful. Then we go to optimization. We all want efficiency. How do I make this thing, just a little bit more efficient? And we go and we run a POC for a part of a process, and we celebrate that win. And then we're like, well, wait a second, why aren't we seeing these efficiency gains? But then we start to reinvent things. We realize what it can actually do. We redesign workflows. We rethink how work gets done. Now things really start to shift to the point where eventually these new realities start to emerge that just weren't there before. We really couldn't have seen them because there were so many steps ahead. So I want to give you a couple examples. I'd say the steam engine was like kind of a big deal. So imitation, what did that look like? It was, well, let's just kind of replace pumping water from mines with horses and manual pumps, and we'll use the steam engine thing instead. Still very impactful. Then they get more efficient. They can power multiple machines. So now we start to see those efficiency gains come up, but it wasn't really until we redesigned around that the steam engine at its core and reconfigured the work around it, did we start to see the real big breakthroughs, which then led to these new realities of railroads and steam engines, in other words, trains that enabled global trade, mass transit, and that created the accelerated progress around the world. I'll give you one more. Internet is another one of these. Imitation. We took brochures, instead of sending letters, we wrote emails, and we're like, the internet, we are here. Look at my GeoCities website. It is amazing. I thought that would get more laughs. Maybe GeoCities is like too much of an early internet thing. Then we get to optimization. So we do start to do new things, right? Like we're like, oh, well, maybe we can put my storefront online now. We can maybe let people book things on the internet. Then we really start to reinvent this concept of social media, cloud computing, streaming, remote collaboration. All these things are reinventions that now sit on top of that as the infrastructure, this distribution infrastructure, if you will. Then new realities start to emerge. We get this whole concept of digital economies, influencers and creators. I mean, those kind of existed, but not really. Global connectivity, remote first work, which enabled everything else to sort of accelerate from there. And so what ends up happening is a lot of bigger established companies kind of get stuck in these first two phases. You were innovative, you were reinventing things, you were challenging the status quo, and then new technology comes out, and you kind of just bolt it on. You go for some efficiencies, which don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that until you get one of those startups that come through, and you just can't imagine how fast that happened. And And so they follow this sort of predictable pattern because we're really wired for consistency, for that safety, but somebody else has already leaped ahead to invention, those startups that I showed you in the beginning. So now I want to come back to, so why are these projects failing? And what the study found was that what the 95% do, they bolt AI onto existing workflows, they try to do it all internally. They've got a bunch of scattered pilots across the organization. They kind of go for flashy use cases because they want people to think it's sexy. They want to make a big splash. I see some heads nodding. I think everybody's done some version of this. We're also, we learn along the way too. Central AI teams sort of decide what's going on. You optimize for what AI can do today, which isn't even close to what it's going to do in 6 months. Success equals how many people have adopted this tool, and you're just adding features to current processes. You're not going to see the big improvements that you want to see doing that. And so what the 5% do that's different is that they're redesigning the workflows around not only what can AI do today, but where it's going, because they can start to see what's going to become possible. Maybe the tech can't do it, but you could start to plan for where we're going to be. They partner with specialists. So they bring in off-the-shelf tools. They bring in partners who have solved for the different use cases before, or at least they know the technology intimately. Those projects are 2 times more successful, the report found. They focus on specific painful problems. Instead of a bunch of little use cases here and there, it's we're going to go tackle this big thing, and we're willing to go and invest to go and do it and know that it's not going to happen in a couple of weeks. They focus on internal stuff, so high ROI areas, internal operations. Adoption's not driven from a central place. It's very bottoms up. It's driven from the people on the front line. They're part of the building. They're part of that story. They design for adaptability as the AI gets better. It's a key thing. We always talk about adaptability and resilience of organizations. It's never been more important. And then their goal is to eliminate processes entirely. The goal is the actual KPI, not how many people are using the thing. We're way past that right now. So that's what they're doing differently. And so the organizations that we see do this, whether it's a big organization or a startup, what this means is they can move a lot faster. So while everybody else is doing these incremental things, they're spreading their investments a little bit too thin. They're not going and tackling the big chunk of work that needs to get done. Whereas these adaptable AI first or AI optimized organizations, they get so many cycles because they're testing and learning constantly. And what works, they scale it. What doesn't, they learn from it. They go back and do it again. They've built these cultures that are much more learning focused, much more adaptable. And so the reason this matters is because as you deploy more and more AI inside your organization, time starts to compress, which means capacity expands. And this is one of those key things that happens because let's say we've got a couple examples here. Summarizing a paper. Or you got to go do something where you've got to pull in a bunch of different reports and then go and generate something else. Without AI, let's say it's one paper, probably going to take you 5 to 10 minutes to go and do. With AI, honestly, the thing that takes the longest is just us typing out on our keyboards that we want it to be summarized, which, by the way, you should just always use voice input into these things. I find myself rarely typing these days. But like in 12 months, it's going to know that, oh, yeah, every Wednesday, I need to go out and get these 3 reports, and I'm going to make a summary for Adam, and here's the summary that Adam likes to see. I don't even have to tell it what I want. The intent isn't even there. Because I've done it so many times, it just knows that needs to get done, or I built an agent that has a specific job to be able to go and do that. And so those 5 to 10 minutes, we could go study that and say, oh, 5 to 10 minutes, that's from down to seconds, so that's a huge gain, 99% productivity boost. But if that's one part of my workflow, you're not really going to see that inside your organization. So you might say, oh, well, that POC kind of failed. We didn't really see the results of it. It's because you didn't look at the end-to-end thing. So a couple more examples. Researching a customer. If you're a sales team, we've worked on this problem. Let's say it takes you an hour to go do full research before you decide if it's a good prospect or not. With AI, it's going to take you 2 to 3 minutes, but probably it's happening behind the scenes. So you're actually going and doing something else now with that time while it's doing this research. And in the future, same thing. It's constantly going to be finding these for you and serving them up. So you go through a bunch of these different examples, preparing a presentation. I do like to make my own presentation still, so I spend a bunch of time on it. But I think that that's one of the key things to keep in mind is like the stuff that you like to do, keep doing it. You don't have to give everything to AI. I really enjoy making these things, so I do it myself. But you don't have to. There's some things that I can give to AI, and it's going to go do on my behalf. Strategic planning, it takes forever. You got to coordinate a lot of different people, a lot of different data sets just to come into the strategic planning process, right? So that starts to shrink down to 1 to 2 days. And so you look across just a couple different tasks that are very common throughout organizations, and you start to see that stuff that used to take minutes takes seconds, stuff that took hours takes minutes, days to hours, time is compressing. And so when your organization is moving that fast, the way that it's set up today is not designed to be able to go and capture this. You have to start rethinking not only how the work gets done, but who owns the work. Is it people? Is it AI? What does that look like? And for folks in the room who like data, here's a couple examples. So this is a chart that shows the length of tasks that AI can do doubles every 7 months. And it's actually getting a little bit faster. So this is specifically looking at engineering tasks here. And it's a log scale, which is why it looks linear. Otherwise, when you look at this on a regular scale, it's a pretty up and to the right curve here. So every 7 months, the thing, where are we at right now? Are we at 1 hour? We're just past 1 hour. And AI is going to be able to do that 50% of the time as good of a human. Claude 4.5 that just came out, they had a task that ran, I think, in their release for 30 hours straight. So pretty complex task, engineering task that it had to go and do. But it got it done. So these models are thinking longer, they're becoming more capable. And so huge impact to engineering, but this curve applies also to, or this line in this case, applies to all kinds of work. This is a pattern that we see show up over and over again. So this goes back to that last thing. This is the data side of it. And so I've got a couple more demos that I want to show you just to kind of bring this to life. So a few different types of agents. It's funny, every time I pull these up, I'm like, oh, this is 2 months old. Now is it too old? Which in most cases it is. So what's going to happen here? We've got the user is going to upload a file, and it's got a bunch of data points in it, and it's going to ask for a custom dashboard from this agent. So this is sped up just a little bit. So it parsed through all the data, did the analysis. If you could see, it says Python 3 up there. So it used Python to do the analysis, and then it just pulled up a dashboard. So this was CSV data, so it's a static upload. Connecting it up to the actual data set is pretty trivial now. But now me as a user, or whoever this was as a user, has a custom-built dashboard. What does this mean for your BI team? What's this mean for your analytics team when routine analytics requests are just a couple words to your analytics agent, and not only can it go find the data, retrieve it, but it'll, whatever you want it to look like, it just comes back, looking like that, on demand, on the fly. That team's going to look different. I'll give you another example. Who's heard of MCP? Excellent. See, here's the new thing. So MCP, I'm sure everybody's heard the term API. You might not know what it means, but like you've heard, oh, we need an API for that, or can we plug into the API? Pretty much any time if you've asked your development team to go do something, like, oh, the API. So think about like this is API for large language models. This enables them to connect up to applications, to connect up to data sources, and know what to do with it, without necessarily having to give it a ton of instructions, because the instructions are sort of packaged up into this thing called Model Context Protocol. So what I want to show you here is this person's going to ask an agent for a report out of Salesforce. Well, it turns out this agent doesn't have a connection to Salesforce. So pretty hard to go and do. But what it does know how to do is figure out how to connect to Salesforce through the MCP. So this agent is going out, it's reading the MCP documentation, it's configuring its connection for the user. It just asked it for some authentication tokens here. So does this user have permission to get into this Salesforce instance? Joe's up here in the front having a brief panic attack about cybersecurity, which he should. It's early. And so it's configured to the MCP server. It's got the data that it wants, and it just generated the report that the user asked for. So now you didn't even have to go and build the agent with the integration. The agent just has to know that it can go and get access to these things, and it can self-configure on its own. This is today. Actually, this is like 5 months ago. Sorry it wasn't from yesterday. But like, it's not, is this going to happen? It's already happening. We're just figuring out the important issues like security, like authentication, like permissions, right? But it's technically possible right now. And so when you've got something like this, how does this start to shift what your engineering team does and what your sales teams are capable of doing? Roles are expanding. Teams need to rethink how they're getting work done. What about computer use? Has anybody heard of computer use? This one's pretty self-explanatory. It's an AI that can use your computer. Who kind of got a little scared? Yeah, fair enough. So this is early. To be fair, like the first version of computer use came out about a year ago. And this is, you're letting a large language model or an agent be able to interact with the computer that you're on. Where this shows up the most right now is if you've heard of agentic browsing. So Chrome, I think, recently launched a version of this. ChatGPT just released a browser that has AI built into it. And so think of it like you can go, when you're on the internet, instead of typing into the search bar where you want to go, and to book a flight, you've got to go do 17 different searches, you can just go to your agent over in the sidebar and say, hey, I need to go to London on these dates. Can you go and find me the best flight? And it'll just go browse the web for you. That's sort of like computer use in a nutshell. So this one, the user is going to ask it to go to this application. So in this case, it's a marketing team. So it's going to pull up this agent, say, hey, go to this application. The user's already logged in. I need to go do my weekly traffic comparison report. And it's just the agent's now took over the screen, took over the browser in this case. And it's going to go scroll down, compare some data. And you can have all these things running in parallel. So you can have multiple queries happening all at once. I can go off, let my dogs out again. Maybe play fetch with Norman a couple more times. And now I've got my comparison. So if I'm the marketing analyst, now 95% of my job, I just fire off queries and it goes and does it for me using my browser. That team has to change. That role has to shift in how it shows up. Right? And so if you took this on as a pilot project, you're like, well, we're going to have AI that can go and run marketing reports. OK, great. Why? What's the big chunky part of that workflow that you're really trying to change, trying to shift? And so what this comes down to is that we're not just implementing AI as a tool now. We need to start having that conversation about how are we re-engineering organizations around a fundamentally new way of operating. And in most cases, this is not a technology problem. It's a leadership thing. It's a people thing. That's what we're here to talk about today for the rest of the day. So what's going on? What does this mean for us as leaders? And so the MIT study comes out, 95% of projects are failing. Harvard says, great, now we're going to go do some research about what can you actually do about it. They came up with this concept of shapers. So what was great was that when this came out and I read it for the first time, I was like, yes, these are the things. So as people who we've implemented this, we've seen this time and time again, full stamp of approval that they got it right, and also happy that the research backs it up. So the S, strategic agility, right? They're making small bets, they measure fast, they prove it quickly. They're not committing to these 18-month roadmaps outside of having the vision for where they ultimately want to be. It's human-centric. So the ones that are winning, they're focusing on enhancing people, not necessarily replacing them. Now, don't get me wrong, there are certain places where I think AI can probably do 100% of the work. Okay, but in a lot of cases, there's so much value in having humans in the loop. And I don't really see us getting away from that for quite some time. It's just how much human is in the loop and what part of the loop are they actually in. Because having humans teach these machines, train them, provide the feedback, determine if stuff is correct, accurate, compliant, helps get you there faster. Oh, and by the way, if you're saving that data and you've got that feedback loop, you can use that with your AI to make it smarter for the next version. Right? Applied curiosity, they ship experiments weekly, not quarterly. It's all about speed to learning, which was that graph that I talked about a little bit earlier. It's performance driven, so they're defining the success metrics before they're going off and building anything. A POC just for fun, if you've got some cash laying around, just want to go build some cool stuff, let's talk later. But honestly, I wouldn't let you go do that because you're not going to see success. But there is value to learning, but you've got to have KPIs up front to see, are you actually moving in that direction? Ethical stewardship, so they're transparent about AI use. They don't hide that they're using it. They don't hide it from their people. They don't hide it from the end users. And that also means keeping humans in the loop to be accountable for the outputs. And I'm sure we've all seen some headlines about how that hasn't always happened, so don't end up in the headlines. They redesign for adaptability. That's what we've talked a lot about today. They're not thinking about just one part of the workflow, it's the whole thing. And they do this through strategic partnerships. They're not trying to do it all themselves with people who just have been self-training for the last 12 months and now call themselves AI experts. They're working with people who know the technology, they know how to implement it, maybe they have a very specific solution to the problem that you want to go and solve. Those projects are significantly more successful. And so where this takes us to is really a choice. So you hang out with the 95%, you can wait and see, you can be in that imitation mode, while your competitors, an early stage startup says, oh, you know what, we don't need 1,000 people to go and do that. We're going to build an AI first and do it with 28, and we'll see you in a couple of years looking in our rearview mirror. And that sounds like, well, we're just going to kind of wait and see how this plays out. We're not going to start learning now. We'll adopt it once it's proven. If you've been saying that for the last 2 years, that's fine. It's been proven. It's here. Feel free to give it a shot. We can let some other people make mistakes. The reality is that people are already making mistakes. They're called frontier labs. They're called OpenAI. They're called Anthropic. They're called Google. They're the ones making the mistakes. They made them 6 months ago. They made them 12 months ago. And now that those, maybe not always mistake-free technologies, but less mistake-prone technologies are now available to the rest of us. Or you can go the learn and lead path. You could be the 5%. You can build that organizational muscle that's built for that adaptability, for that evolution, because this technology, like Will Smith showed us, it gets better real fast. So the thing that might not be working today, it's probably going to work in 6 months, definitely going to work in 12 months, and then you'll just have a different problem to solve for. And so whether that's your tech infrastructure that needs to be adaptable to plugging things in and out and swapping things in and out, but also your people and your processes and the way that you work, it's always been this thing that I think as big organizations have strived for is to be as adaptable as a startup, right? We hear that a lot. It's like, well, how do we behave more like a startup? But it sounds like let's experiment and learn fast. We can build capability as it matures. We're not waiting for it to be perfect. We're building as we go. And we're going to make smart, small mistakes along the way. And that's OK. We're going to embrace that because that's called learning. It's not called failure. So I want you to imagine 18 months from now. You've got your competitors, other companies who are going to take the wait and see route, and they'll be looking back at this headline saying, oh, yeah, OK, we did make all those mistakes. All right, so hopefully if you get into that point, that's OK. Learn from it. I'll send you a copy of this presentation, and then or go read the study, and then go and do some of those things, right? Or you can go the other path. You could be like the bold startups, the large organizations who are going to challenge the status quo. You can be like Gamma and say, OK, what if we took this AI-first approach? What if we really went for it? What could that look like? You've built this organizational muscle to do this. Because really, the difference between these two organizations goes back to that chart, right? The gap widens exponentially because of how fast this is moving, and the organizations that are testing and learning and trying, while not every project might succeed today, the amount that you learn along the way is significant and does have ROI attached to it. And so for you all who are in this room, like, this is your shot. It's one shot. You're probably going to have a couple, but like, this is a pretty big one. And we're at this moment where I really think that a lot of the old rules, they're no longer working. The way that we've kind of built organizations, we're at a point where it's starting to shift. It's the whole, like, what got you here is certainly not going to get you there. And I think that we're about to reach the point where the play it safe, let's wait and see, is definitely going to have some consequences, if not just for getting your organization familiar with the technology. Now, you don't necessarily need to go out on the frontier edge and try to go be an open AI if you're not an open AI. Be you, but start to bring this stuff in. Start to learn, start to experiment. Because that AI inflection point, it's not coming, it's here. We can go back through those graphs if you want to, but everything is up and to the right. And so, in my mind, the question isn't necessarily which path are you going to choose, it's what are you going to go do tomorrow? What actions are you going to go take in the next 90 days, in the next quarter? What can you figure out today? As Em said in the beginning, what are the actions you can take? What are the things you want to think about? What do you want to go drive and change? What are you going to commit to go and start making that happen? And I have no doubt that you're going to have a lot of hard conversations. You're going to have to make some really hard choices. And that's why I'm excited for what Sheeta and Joe are going to talk about here in a little bit. So with that, thank you all for being here today. I'm always happy to talk more about AI, where we're heading, what's going, what's real, what's not, what you're afraid of. But otherwise, what are you going to do with it? Thanks.